You might not recognize the name David Hodges, but chances are you've heard his music. He grew up in Arkansas, and in 1999 got together with Amy Lee and Ben Moody to form a band called Evanescence. He co-wrote a lot of those songs in their early demos and a big chunk of their debut album, Fallen. As a member of that band, he found huge success early on. That record alone sold over 7 million copies in the U.S. and all over the world, 17 million. Man, that's incredible. In 2002, he left and decided it was time to pursue other things. This was pretty odd timing. Fallen was the band's major label debut, and it didn't come out until 2003. Normally, if you're planning on making a career in music, you write the songs, make the record, and go out on the road. David decided that he would just do the first two. And instead of going out on tour, he stayed put, wrote more songs, and made more records. He played in a couple of other bands after Evanescence, one of which was called Trading Yesterday. Got a record deal and almost got to the point of releasing a record. The record never came out, and that moment was a turning point for David Hodges. As he tells us in this interview, now as a songwriter, he doesn't tour. He lives in L.A. and stays home for the most part, spending his days in the studio working with artists to put together a lot of songs you end up hearing on the radio. And, of course, spending time with his kids. Just a few notable artists he's written with include Avril Lavigne, Christina Perri, who was a big deal for him because it was kind of her breakthrough record that he did with her. Kelly Clarkson, Jason Mraz. He's got a very successful gig at this point, and he's in high demand as a songwriter. I worked with him on a Train song called To Be Loved, which you may have heard. Well, we played that one during the session, and in the same room we wrote the song in, which is cool. David also tells us about a new project he's working on. He started a publishing company, signing songwriters to deals where they can develop their talents and actually make some money. The music industry has traditionally had a lot of traps set up to keep artists separated from their money. It was pretty interesting to hear David's take on that and how he's trying to build his company in a way that benefits the company and the artist. The music industry has, over the years, built itself up in such a way that it can be extremely confusing to outsiders and very difficult to navigate for aspiring musicians and songwriters. David Hodges came into a music industry that was in flux and did things in a way that no one in the old music industry would have expected or recommended, for that matter. Doing things his own way worked out phenomenally well for him, and he's been able to chart his own course and pursue his own creative interests largely on his own terms. It's a pretty inspiring story, to be honest, so let's listen. It's David Hodges this week on the Patcast.
What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking, looking at you. You got to get it while the getting is good. Laugh when you can, cry when you should. You got to give it till the giving is gone. Do what you can, then you move on. What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking, looking at you.
Hey everybody, it's Pat Monahan, and I'm here in, I don't even know what part of town this is. Is it Studio City?
The city of studios.
And plus, and we're in a studio now, because we're in Studio City, called Sleepwalker Studios, with a friend of mine, David Hodges. And David, I haven't seen you since we recorded To Be Loved in Seattle.
It has been a while.
And so thanks for doing the podcast.
Of course, yeah.
I have like 2 questions for you, so this is only going to take like a minute or two.
Thank God. Thank God.
Actually, I think one of the things that I just wanted to, what you're, I think, most popular for, but shouldn't be, is Evanescence, because you guys were so massive in the time that you were in that band. And so a lot of people will know you from that.
Right.
And so you were in Evanescence from 99 to like 2002 or 3?
Yeah, right. Yeah, for about 3 years there.
The biggest years.
It was when we were, when I joined Ben and Amy, they had been making music for a second. But within a year of us kind of writing songs together, we got a record deal, which for kids in Arkansas was unheard of. Like,
And
I
you're
don't think,
all from Arkansas.
yeah, all three from Little Rock. So we got a record deal and then spent 2 years living at the Oakwoods here in LA, making and writing that record, which
Wow.
I think we hold the record. I know a lot of bands who've been through the Oakwoods.
You hold the
Just-
record of staying there the
Of
longest?
staying there the longest, which is important because it's such a soul-sucking, like just...
Yeah.
I stayed there.
Yeah, it steals your dreams at night. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
rough.
yeah. Pergo is actually the guy who is assigned to steal your dreams. he works
He's the
at the
dream
Oakwood.
stealer.
Yeah.
Successful.
Well played, Pergo. So we were there for 2 years, and we wrote the record and made the record, and then once the record was finished,
They must have had a lot of faith in you guys to like a label paying for that much Oakwood.
that is a serious amount of Oakwood. I'm torn. A lot of people would credit themselves included would credit Wind Up as like one of the last bastions of artist development. They just didn't talk to us for 2 years. Like,
Right.
yes, they allowed us a place to stay and a practice room to work out of, but there was no sense of development except for the fact that it was like, we'll pick up the phone when you guys write some good songs. And until then, you're just left
Was
there.
Greg Wattenberg a part of
No,
Wind
Greg
Up at
was,
the time?
Greg was not at Wind Up at the time. I think he came in 2006 or something.
How old were you?
I was 24-ish.
And how did you guys find each other in Arkansas? You were all from Little Rock?
All from Little Rock.
Because Ben, he's a very talented guy,
He's
right?
really talented. And Amy as well. I mean, I think...
Well, I only mentioned Ben because I know that as you are doing, he's out there writing songs. Like,
Yeah.
he might not be Evanescence anymore, but he's out there working as hard as you are,
Right.
and doing some big stuff, right?
Right.
Or at least getting work. And how about Amy? Is she still singing?
She has carried the torch of Evanescence all these years.
Oh, cool. She's really a sweet girl. I met
Yeah.
her at a Johnny Cash
Oh, no
tribute.
way.
And I just was like, you are so lovely. Like,
Yeah.
what a nice person.
Yeah, she's having a baby too. I think she's having a baby in sometime this year. So she's kind of continued on with Evanescence. It's Ben and I always joke about like at the season of the music industry when we put Fallen out. We were like one of those last really, really big records around that time.
Yeah.
And
The
Amy's
biggest. I mean, it was so
I think it's
big.
like 18 million units by now. It's just nuts, just nutty. Which is, it's kind of like when if your first music video that you ever saw was Thriller, or
Yeah.
your first movie was Star Wars, it's like, well, now everything from here on out is like, well, this is a good record. It only sold 6 million copies, but it was good. You know, it's like everything just kind of, but Amy's made 2 records since that first one, and they have done as well as I think the market has provided, but as the industry has gone down,
Sure.
it just makes me and Ben look like geniuses. People are like, if they just get those guys back in, they will hit it hard.
Well, they were why it happened.
exactly.
So, but
And
I mean,
I let them say it. You know,
I have never met Ben, but
Yeah.
you know, I've known you for several years, and meeting Amy, just my first impression of her is very positive. I don't understand why 3 people like you guys wouldn't still be the band. Like, I don't understand, because to me, it's all about personality.
Yeah.
Everything is about personality. Like, you know, if you call it direction or whatever, I just think if you really break it all down, it just means somebody's being an asshole,
Right.
or maybe there's a hard person to work with, but it doesn't, I don't see that in your setup. But am I just not seeing?
You just weren't seeing it.
Okay.
It was definitely there.
It's
Like
there.
it was, and I think we didn't know it at the time, but being at the Oakwoods, so we had a place to stay and we had a practice space, and actually we had a gym membership too, which is kind of funny. These are the 3 things the label provided, and then we had $150 a week to live off of. And in Little Rock terms, I was like, oh, we can manage this, we can make this happen. But in LA, $150 a week, it's like, man.
That's
and they
your
would
bar tab for 3 nights.
Yeah, exactly. And the label was like, go out to clubs and just experience culture. It's like, well, first of all, Ben and Amy were under 21 at the time. And then also, yeah, there was just no money to be able to do anything. I hope that my car doesn't break down because we'll
Right.
just be walking for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
So the stresses of that and not really knowing when we're going to make our record or just a label like these songs, or that whole process, I think made it really hard for us. It banded us together for a little bit, and then I think it just kind of split us apart. And we have really different personalities from each other.
Well, that's too bad. You know, Greg Wattenberg has set up, well, I don't think he's a part of Wind Up anymore, but he ended up buying Wind Up.
Oh, wow, I didn't know.
And before he did that, he created this environment in New York, because the tradition of doing, hey, bring the band here, have them live here and work, was, you know, you can imagine a very, like, not a lot of labels were doing that.
Right.
And so it was very costly. And I think maybe more times than not, it didn't work out like they had hoped. Not a lot of Evanescence around, you know?
Right.
And so what Greg did, which seemed expensive at the time, but was incredibly smart and had a lot of foresight, was he basically bought a floor of a studio in New York, right in Times Square, at Quad.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're renting this huge space out. Half of it is to make records.
Right.
And then the other half was to just basically house kids, or not house kids, but keep different rooms of kids working. And then they bought an apartment. The label bought an apartment with like 2 bedrooms in it. And we're like, that's where our kids are going to stay. And then they're going to come here and work. And it was like a kind of had a lot of like before its time kind of smarts.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But, you know, I don't think he's a part of the outfit anymore. But that probably would have maybe been an interesting thing for you guys to do. So you would have probably ended up going to New York had they have set that up at the time. And do you think that LA played any kind of role in how good you guys created that sound and that record? Do you think that you could have done the same thing in New York, or is that just like, why are you asking me such a dumb hypothetical question?
I must say, I think you write different songs in different cities. I go to Nashville a lot to write, and I can write with the same people in this room and then write with them in Nashville, and we just write a really completely different song. So I think cities do affect the art that you're making. I know that the label, I talked to the A&R guy who did our project a couple of years after the Evanescence record came out, and he said, you know, we talked at the label that you guys were just kind of green and hadn't had much life experience, and so we wanted you to kind of to walk through that a little bit more. And he was like kind of ushering in some hard times to make good art from it. I was like, man,
yeah,
that sucks.
Thanks
like,
a lot.
And maybe he was right. Maybe the record was better because of it, but I think it did ensure that we wouldn't make another record together again.
Yeah,
so it's like, I don't know. It's one good thing comes from it, one bad.
So you made one record as the 3 of you.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't even tour it, right?
No, I didn't tour it at all.
Yeah.
Why?
When we were making the record, we were all 3 just so sick of each other, and
that's incredible. Yeah. Like that you would have the confidence to be like, I'm going to be fine.
Well, I don't think they wanted me around either. I mean, it was a mutual decision. Really? But I was listening. It's funny. I would while we were in the studio making the album. So we had lived in LA for about a year and a half writing and just kind of recording our own stuff. And then when we were finally in the studio making the record, I remember I was listening to John Mayer, Room for Squares, and Jason Mraz, and kind of, I think, trying to get my brain away from what we were writing. Not because I didn't like it, but because I was just so tired of these brooding, mid-tempo, start on a minor chord, end on a minor chord kind of songs. The instruments that we used were always not stock, but they were very specifically the same thing from one song to the next. So I was just so tired of that thing, which lends itself to my job now, that I can write a country song one day and a pop song.
Well, I think that's important. Next, so. There's a couple things that I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, the transition from being in a band to being a songwriter and a producer doesn't seem like it was too much of a transition for you.
I think it was in my brain to have to let go of the artist thing, because I had grown up, I think, with the impression of, for the first 5 years of writing music, it was just me sitting at a piano playing songs. And so I envisioned this Billy Joel kind of thing in the future. And then Evanescence happens, and then I envisioned that's what I'm going to be doing for a long time. And then after Evanescence, I actually went back to Little Rock for about a year and met my wife, and we got married, and I moved back to LA because I got a record deal for me as an artist. And that was a more, I don't know, singer-songwriter, the Fray kind of piano rock thing. And so then I was thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. and so the idea of being in the studio and writing and producing songs for other people, it's not that I was against it as much as I never thought. I didn't really think songwriting for other people was a real job. I guess I never like connected the dots. I was like, well, when the guy's singing it, like obviously he wrote it by himself in his bedroom, and it's really sweet. So this idea of like other people collaborating in the process really didn't clue into me. And then Ben called me up one day, and this is another like Evanescence type moment. Ben called me up one day and he was like, hey, there was this girl on a TV contest show this last summer, and she really likes the Evanescence record, and she wants to write a song with us. And her name's Kelly Clarkson, and the TV show seems to be doing really well. And I remember at the time being like, a TV contest singing show, that's not going to work. But anyway, and I said, well, do you want to write with her? Like it was kind of a foreign idea to me to be writing with someone for another project.
And plus, you have $1 billion, and you don't really need to do anything.
And that's another part of the thing is like I think I was in Little Rock at the time, and I was sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with a buddy, and another friend was sleeping on the floor, and I was like, I'm paying $250 a month for this place. I can do this for the next 400 years. Yeah, I'm good. I'm set. Like, I'm gold.
50.
Yeah.
400 years.
So there was no sense of ambition right at the time. But I was like, well, I guess that could be fun. So Ben and I meet Kelly Clarkson, and she's sweet and great, and man,
and she's a terrific singer.
I mean, an incredible singer. Yeah. And the first song we write together is Because of You,
right?
Which ended up on this breakaway record. Ended up being, I think, the most played song in the world in 2007. Something just completely nuts. And again, I was like,
not as nuts.
Oh, sweet! I like this gig.
Yeah, not as nuts as it would seem because you already did it before.
And maybe that was part of it too. Like at the time, I didn't realize how lucky we were to be part of a project like that. And we were talking to the A&R guy on the phone, and I remember getting off the phone with him or talking with Ben. It's like everyone seems really nervous about stuff, but this is kind of easy. They just got to give us some money, and we go in the studio and we write a song, and then it's heard all over the world. It's like, oh no, this job can be more complicated than that. But
why did I have the impression that Evanescence was from Canada? Why would anyone have thought that? Like I
don't know.
The minor chords,
I knew
maybe?
you weren't. I knew you weren't, but is it because I mean, and now at this phase of the game, you've worked with Avril,
right?
You've worked with Chad,
right?
Do you like them? Do you know the same things about them that I hear, or are they really lovely people?
Man,
can you confirm or deny that they are the Barbra Streisands of today's music world?
I'm not even sure what the implication of the Barbra Streisand means.
Terrible humans!
I will say, without a doubt, Chad Kruger is one of my best friends now.
Oh, that's so cool.
He's great. Incredibly, like, gracious with, like, when you're in a room with him, you feel like he's your biggest fan.
Oh,
actually,
that's
you know
really
what?
cool.
Maybe he just does that with me. Maybe I'm special.
Yeah, because he told me he hates my shit.
And then we fought.
No, I've never met either one of them.
No, he's great. He's really, really great. And the process with Avril was really great, too. It was funny. Avril and Chad and I joke about, like, when we first started working on Avril's record, I don't know how it happened, but something about the environment of, as we're working together, like the first few days of it, we were just all like opening up our souls and telling really deep stories about our lives. And I told them about how, you know, the process with Evanescence and Ben and Amy they were dating and then they weren't dating. And it was just kind of this tumultuous love affair. And I was like the guy on the side, like, okay, whenever we can write music, that'd be great. And then a couple of weeks into the session with Avril, what was it? Chad moved his hotel. He was staying at some hotel, and then he moved it to be at the same hotel that Avril was at, and they were like riding to and from the studio together I was like, wait a second, Seth. And he was like, no, man, nothing's happening. We're totally cool. We're just friends or whatever. And so then as their romance was forming in the studio, it's like, I feel like I'm in Evanescence again. Like, you guys are all sneaking off to the side to make out. And I'm just like, doing the thing. So, but it was, the dynamic with the three of us, I thought was a lot of fun.
Did you write a whole record with those guys?
Yeah, we ended up making the whole record together.
Wow, that's cool.
Towards the end, some other guys came in and we wrote a few more songs with some other. But I think 11 or 12 of the songs on the record were ones that we wrote together. So.
Her tour manager loves her. He was our production manager for the last couple of years.
Oh, nice.
While she was taking a break, or in between records,
right.
He's a very strange man. He used to be a singer in a band himself, and he's awesome.
Oh yeah,
David Ellison.
Dave
Ellison.
Nice.
Huh.
But yeah, so he's never had any rumors about either one of them. He went to their wedding and
Did
all
you
that.
go in Paris?
Yeah.
Were you there?
So I tried to get him to tell me some bad stuff about that too.
It didn't work,
but
though?
It didn't work. So not on either one of you.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, like, I'm amazed at how the more time I spend around people in the public eye, like, all it takes is a little sliver of an interaction with someone, and then that person walks away and extrapolates the whole thing. It's like, well, it was a crowded restaurant and she didn't actually hear me say anything, so it's not like she ignored me and walked away. She just couldn't hear me at all. But now I'm extrapolating the story to say, like, well, I bet she ignores everyone. I bet she probably had terrible parents. Like, I think we do that with celebrities.
I do that.
And so it's I do it.
I do it from looking at a picture in a magazine. Like, I go like, oh, that person.
But you're one of
that person is this far from.
You're one of the pictures in the magazine, though.
oh my God, that's me.
Okay, that guy looks like a serious. That's me.
He's a murderer. I've been wondering, like, you've worked with hundreds of people at this point.
Exactly 100 people. Actually, I'm retiring tomorrow. I hit my mark.
Do you have some favorites, or like one moment that was like, man, this is what I'm supposed to do? Or do you have maybe one of your least favorites that was like, dude, this was just so much work? Like, or are there moments where you're like, we got absolutely nothing, and then the song ends up being huge? Or do you always know?
Oh, I definitely do not always know. I rarely know. There have been, I don't know, 15, 20 songs along the way that I was just convinced this is the thing.
Right.
Maybe because I'm relating it to, like, the emotion that I felt for another song that was successful. I'm not sure what it is, but I was just convinced that this was it, or that this artist is just a no-brainer, that this project's going to work.
Makes sense, yeah.
And it completely falls on its face. I have usually 2 terrible songwriting sessions a year, and I never see them coming.
What
they
make
sneak
them
up on me.
terrible?
Because the person I'm writing with is just not a good human being. They're just.
And are they usually not successful, or are they usually very successful?
They are all unsuccessful.
Right.
I mean, just across the board. I've had obviously better songwriting sessions than others with people who have been successful, but that has more, I think, to do with, like, chemistry. I have found that anyone who has success shows up to songwriting sessions, shows up to the studio, like, ready to work and ready to engage and ready to be emotionally open to write about things, because they understand what writing a good song is about. Every diva I've ever worked with that I swore never to work with again were all really unsuccessful people that will never be successful, because it's like, you don't understand that people liking you actually really matters.
It matters,
business, you know, which is, I think, a really healthy and natural.
When are you going to get that? When are you going to get that together?
I'm working on it. It's a process. I thought people say that kids, like, round out your rough edges. It hasn't worked for me yet.
No, it hasn't.
Speaking of diva, though, how did you meet Pat?
How did we meet?
I think it was through Dan McCarroll.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because you and Dan are buddies. And Dan took over as my representative at EMI Publishing.
Right.
Before he moved on to start being the head of record labels.
Now he's like the head of, exactly.
So, but before we play a song, I just wanted to mention how we recorded this song, because when we wrote "To Be Loved," I remember playing it for my managers, and they were like, "Yeah, we got to rewrite the chorus."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense," because I wanted the chorus to be kind of like simple and a little bit of hip hoppy, like for some reason, you know.
Right.
And they were like, "Yeah, but that's not the way this thing." But then this movie comes along that they need a song, and so we sent them the song just as it was, and they were like, "Yeah, this is exactly what we want." So,
That's awesome.
So you came to Seattle to record, to produce it, because another thing that's really smart about my manager is that when he hears a demo that sounds really good, he's like, "David knows what he's doing. Like, we shouldn't have somebody else do this. Like, he wrote the song with you. He knows how it should sound. Like, have him come and do it." And everybody in the band just loved working with you.
Oh, cool, man. That's fun.
So, you know, I think you have a big personality because, and you have to, I think, to play your role. When you're a producer, if you don't know what you want, then you're screwed, and you're screwing your artist because most times they don't know what they want. Like, as an artist, when I go into a room, it's rare that I know what I want.
Yeah.
I kind of need somebody to focus me. And that's why Jonathan is such a great manager for me, and Bob, because they focus me. And I was super lost before that. Like, you know, maybe one good song on each record that kind of got me to get another record, but they really focused me on how to do this. And
that's cool.
Do you have somebody in your life that focuses you? Do you have somebody that has mentored you, or somebody you can rely on, or when you do feel unfocused, you can give them a call and get straight again?
Yeah, I mean, I have my manager. I feel like finding a good manager is a very hard piece to find, but once you find that person, you're like, oh, okay. Why haven't I been doing this thing all along? And my manager and I have worked together for about 5 years now, and we laugh about it, but his job is to make as much money off of the music that I make, and what that allows me to do is to think more artistically. Like, it allows me to not think like a business person when I'm creating art. And that space has been really helpful for me. I think before then I would walk into every session thinking, okay, not just what's a great song or how can I be a good person to this other writer, but like what's cool on the radio right now, and what's the right thing to chase, and how can I make the most of this, and having him, I think, cover the bases of like, we'll figure out how to get this music out to the world or how to make money off of it later, but you just chase down the artistic process.
Yeah, that
space has been really helpful for me.
Once you chase the radio, you never catch it.
Oh man, totally.
You can't catch anything that's happening, and so yeah, it's always best to just go write the best thing you can write. And let other people figure out where it belongs.
Man, Hey Soul Sister was totally that too, because there wasn't anything like it at the time, and then all of a sudden, everyone was like, "This is the music. This is the music of the time." No, it really was.
Yeah, hopefully, I won't ever do that again. I don't ever want to change a trend or be anything that sticks out. I'm just really trying to sit in the back seat and shut
somewhere
my
between
mouth.
80%, and then not at the bottom, not at the top. Just keep
I
me
just
in the
want to
middle.
be. Can I just fit in here? Can we try to play this song, man? Because I would love for people to hear it the way we wrote it. Because it's pretty fun.
In this room, actually.
If you want to sing any part of it with me,
I don't know.
Here are the words, which I love looking up on the internet. Pergo printed these out for me.
Are they close?
Here's someone's interpretation of the piano part that you wrote.
Oh, they think it's a lyric?
It's a lyric that goes ba da 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 da. So it's a ba da.
That's totally what I was thinking when it was written. Yes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
What can I put here? Ba da.
Ba da da. Oh, this feels like a ba da da. Nice.
So Jerry's gonna play with us. Jerry wasn't in the room when we wrote it. That's probably why it's a good song.
Right there.
What key is it?
Oh, here we go. He is a songwriter.
I know the numbers.
Hey.
It's an A, okay.
Well, I can play it down or play it up. 'Cause we got these cool. Or I can go.
I didn't know until the release because I thought it was just for that soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that it went on the
It was on the album. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
that was.
And
that was a nice little bonus.
It's a really highly requested song, especially in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, because it was like a UK release for us and stuff, and we just did a boat cruise,
Oh yeah.
and we played a piece of this because it was we did a Q&A, and people asked about, what made you write You Finally Met Virginia, and what was that whole thing about,
Yeah. I didn't know that that's cool that it's weird how certain songs crop up in different regions. That's fascinating to me, like why. Yeah. Chad was telling me recently how Nickelback works really well in like mainland Europe, but never worked in the UK. And
wow, that's the opposite of us.
But he said, and then Rockstar came out. And Rockstar was huge in the UK. But he said nothing else ever has been. Which, I have a theory.
I do too.
This is only about US and UK. So, the US has like a natural bell curve on art, where if it's too avant-garde, then we don't totally get it. But then when it becomes more of a mainstream, middle pocket kind of musical space, then we get it. And then if it becomes too cheeky, then we're kind of over it. But the UK is like the opposite of that. Anything that's kind of like mainstream and can fit in that space they're not into, but they really like the avant-garde edgy stuff. And then they really like the super cheesy stuff.
Yes.
Like their boy bands and their Susan Boyles and and the X Factor stuff that that wouldn't slide here, but it works here. And Rockstar is obviously a really cheeky song, and that's why it works.
That was exactly my theory.
Really?
No.
See,
my theory had more to do with the UK, they speak English?
You're going to have to unpack this a little bit more for me. We do too, right?
He said they didn't do well in the UK, but they did well everywhere else, and they don't speak English.
I see where this is going.
That was mean-spirited. That was not nice at all. Actually, I think I'm just jealous because the guy has written 600 number one songs, and so you just get mad at him about it. That's all. I'm just living in that world.
I'm telling you, what I do like, too, is like, obviously the jokes exist, but the guys they really are, all of them are just the nicest guys I've ever met.
Yeah, that's
and they all kind of tell the same kind of jokes about it too. Like they kind of get the punchline, which is funny.
Well,
I think.
I know that they worked with Chris Daughtry, and Chris is a lovely guy. You've worked with him too, is right? And and also, at the time when I met Chris, he was working on this song that was actually really a great song.
Yeah.
He was working on it with Chad and Richard Marx together.
Oh yeah,
and so I've met Richard just recently. So Chad, I'm gonna have to catch up with, but
nice.
What they did together was really great songwriting. So it's interesting to see how that stuff exists and what friendships exist out here.
Yeah, it is wild those are some weird connections along the way.
Yeah.
Because now I think Richard lives in LA now.
Yeah, he does.
He was in Chicago for the longest time.
Yeah, he was in Chicago forever.
Huh.
All right, so
we wrote this song like a week before San Francisco came out, a week before the album came out. And I remember you came in and I was like, hey man, good to see you. Doesn't your record come out in a week? Like, doesn't your album come out like tomorrow? And you're like, yeah, I just want to write songs. I thought that was really cool.
That's why that record was, the California 37 was such an easier record than Save Me San Francisco to me, because as soon as the pressure was off, it got fun.
Yeah.
As soon as now I don't have a choice. The song, the record is done. Like I gotta live with what I did. But everything else now I can just have fun,
just play around. Yeah,
it was just like writing songs isn't a job really.
Yeah,
it's just kind of fun,
right?
Except for those 2 times a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you go like, all right,
they make up for the rest of it, man.
They make it up, yeah.
Whew. With me, it's 2 times a day.
I have 2 terrible, but I will stick by this. Like, I'm glad that I don't have to dig ditches for a living, but I would rather be digging ditches on the days of those bad co-writes.
Yeah.
Because I know as the clock's ticking, I'm going to make no money on this song. Like, all of these efforts are in vain, and I can't get this person out of my room. Like, I start just agreeing with whatever they say on the second verse. It's like, sweet, love that line. Fantastic. Because, like, I just want to go hang out with my kids now. I just want to get out of this room. But there's only 2 a year. That's not that bad, really.
I'm a huge liar. fire. So let me help you with this. Here's how you do it. Did I eat something bad?
This is fantastic.
What did I don't. I'm so sorry. I'm just like, I don't know if I have food poisoning right now or what. Something's going on with me.
Wait, can you do that on one of our sets?
Can you excuse me for 1 minute?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
did that at our session.
It's tricky when it's at your house, though. Like, I can't, like, I'm not feeling well. Can you leave?
Please do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel fine, actually. Will you just leave?
I feel like you're coming down with something, aren't you? Yeah. I feel like I don't want you to get me contagious. No, I feel fine. I think you're coming down with something.
You're sick. Yeah, anyway. All right. This is To Be Loved. The first time. We'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see if Jerry can get through it. He usually hits one really weird, like, no, not that note, like that throughout every time we do a song.
We do that. We hold on that D at the end of the second verse.
Well,
right?
Jerry doesn't, but yes, you're supposed to.
This is one of those times in the day.
This is one of those. In case you're wondering,
This is one of those.
Nice.
Finding me at Virginia on a slow summer night. Thought I should forgive you, so I came back. You're a sight for sore eyes, right for those lies. They saved me after all. Right from the beginning we were wrong, I found, but no one did it better, baby, pound for pound. Those heavyweight fights were right for me to learn how to see the light clearly, and it's the light I see in you. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. What it's like to be loved. Now that things are better for me, I can laugh at all your other lovers. When you do the math, doesn't make you feel sad, make you feel small. Thank God it ain't about me anymore. Well, I'm not coming back for round two. I just wanna love you like a friend would do. You weren't wrong for the feelings you had, but the man that I was isn't coming back, so stay. It's okay. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. What it's like to be loved. When you said it's over, I lost my head. And now that we're older, I'm giving up on being right, so I can see the other side of you. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. No, don't go. I'll show you what it's like to be loved. What it's like to be loved. When you said it's over, I lost my head.
Man, we should have recorded it like that. That sounded amazing.
That was great. Yeah.
I mean me.
Yeah.
I mean me. You guys were fine.
I'm not saying you did bad, but I was
Second
really
time
good.
in the day.
Nice. Hey, am I too loud banging down here?
No, you're
Okay,
great.
cool.
We're not going to use your parts in the real mix.
So it will bleed through. It'll be a little bit weird.
So David, my wife always has some questions at the end of all these that she likes me to ask.
Oh, nice.
But before I get to that, do you have some upcoming writing sessions or shows? Are you doing shows? Because the last time I saw you, like I said, you were signed to Cara DiGuardia's label.
Oh, well, I was signed to Warner, but she was my A&R, yeah.
Oh, she was your A&R. So that was like the first year she was on American Idol. And you guys were pretty good friends, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you still write songs together? Is she still out there writing songs?
I think she had a baby, and I think that I know that after Idol, she started doing some more like TV guest appearances. I don't hear about. I know that she still writes. We're not in those same kind of circles. It's weird how you
don't really work together much anymore.
No, I haven't seen her in probably 2 or 3 years.
And are you still on Warner?
No. That my artist career is long gone now.
Are you done pursuing the artist part of all of this?
I am most definitely done with that. I think what I realized is when I, with the Warner deal, I was living here at the house and I was writing songs and I was really happy about that. And Cara said, she and I had the same manager at the time, so she heard a bunch of songs that I was turning in for some project. She's like, "Man, you sing these songs better than
you're a great
would."
singer.
Oh, thank you.
Like, and that's a very common thing in Nashville. I'm told. That everybody writing the songs is better than anybody who's going to record.
Oh, there's some great. I mean, if you hear Hillary Lindsey demos in Nashville, you're like, man, why isn't she?
Yeah.
But so she said, you should do an artist thing. And I was like, well, I kind of always wanted that. Maybe this is how the road got to it. And then as I started having conversations with the label, they kept on saying things like, are you sure you want to do this? And
Really?
I remember thinking like, how hard can it be? I mean, I've seen Pat do it. You just get up on stage and sing some songs and you get to go be awesome. Like how?
What did they mean by that? Because of all the promotion and being away from home?
Yeah,
and
they
like
meant
what
like,
it really
do you
meant?
really want to you are an established songwriter and producer. Do you really want to start from zero and get in a van and do
It's
the
a
whole thing?
really good question, and now you know it is.
Now
isn't
I get it, yeah. And at the time I was like, how hard could that? I go on the road with some buddies and sing some songs, that'd be easy. And then I did a little bit of it. And I was like, nah, I'm out. I'm good.
You see, the real answer is, what's the big deal? So what? I'll develop a little worse drinking problem.
Right.
I'll lose my marriage. There's a good chance my kids are going to end up in jail. Plus, what I'll get out of it with the record tanking is, nothing.
And,
Wait a minute, what am I doing?
Yeah, a real vacuum inside of me. Like, what did I do wrong? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then I'll go to rehab. I'll turn my life to, anyway.
I think I'll do it. Yeah. That was actually all in the contract. And I was like, this is weird.
There's another question I wanted to ask you about being an artist that I thought was, I want to make sure it's true. And because I have a connection with Donnie Ienner myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to know what the story was about Donnie Ienner, and right after Evanescence, you had another band.
Right. A band called Trading Yesterday.
Yeah. So the story goes, and then you can...
You heard this from Donnie or from someone else? Shh.
I heard it from Pergo, and I'm trying to talk right now.
David, this is not your podcast. This is my podcast.
One of my new jokes, by the way, just to interject in my own conversation, is what I've done. I did this to Jerry the other day. I was like, "Hey, you and Butch, pretend you're talking, like pretend you're having like a conversation, so I can tell you what my new joke is." So they were like, "So anyway, we're there," and I just walk right up and I go, "I'm talking."
It's fantastic. I like
you
it.
Should try that
I'm
out.
a fan of it.
So Donnie Ienner, he was a big part of my career.
Oh, right.
Good and bad, but very influential. So he, according to Pergo, who told me the story earlier,
Who
did a
tells
lot
many,
of
many
research
lies.
we were both researching, but he did more of it because I was pretty drunk. So Donnie Einer is your label head for trading
yesterday. Yes.
for trading yesterday. You aren't really hearing from anybody about this record that you've finished, and you're like, I don't know what the release date is. I don't know when this is going to happen. And then you see Donnie Einer at an event. You go up to Donnie Einer and you say, hey, man. He's like, hey, David Hodges. Hey, when are we going to get that Trading Yesterday record out? And you're like, man, that sounds like exactly the question I was going to ask you. He's like, well, let's set up a meeting, come in, and we'll figure it out. You go in, and he goes, man, I got bad news for you, buddy. Nobody really cares. So you should get out of your deal. Is this about right?
That's 100% right.
Holy
That's
cow.
amazing.
And I honestly, you're on it. The funny thing is, so we had the record deal. With Evanescence, it was impossible to get in the studio and make an album. And so, to me, my training was to be an artist. To get a record deal is not easy, but then to actually get in the studio and make the record's the hard part. Once the record's made, then going from there, they always sell 18 million copies. But so with with Trading Yesterday, this is normal, right? With Trading Yesterday, I got the record deal. We went in the studio right away and we recorded the record. And so I was like, man, I just bypassed all the hard parts of this. But then we waited around after the record was finished for like a year. Yeah, and I was in New York randomly at a Sigur Rós concert. And I was with a buddy of mine. And I still hadn't gotten into like writing for other people that much. We had written with Kelly, but I didn't really know that was going to become the rest of my life. And I saw Donnie there, and I had met him once for 4 minutes. And so he was with his son or something. And at the break in the concert, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go up to him and I'm going to introduce myself. He won't remember who I am, and that's fine. I don't really care. But I'm going to introduce myself to him and just see if I can like get something out of him. And yeah, right when I walked up, he was like, David Hodges, when are we going to put this Trading Yesterday record out? I was like, really? Unbelievable. And he said, man, I've been listening to this stuff and I love it. It's great.
Wow.
And that may not even be true, but I don't care. I'm in. I'm all about it. Yeah. I was taking off my clothes while he was saying it. Like, whatever you say, sir.
That's how
and he
it
said,
works.
he said, call me tomorrow morning and we'll figure it out. I didn't end up going to his office, but I called him up at 9 a.m. the next morning, and he was like, hey, man, bad news. Nobody cares about your record. You should get out of your deal. Which did you find, in retrospect, do you find that to be an asshole move or a really great stand-up thing to do? Oh, totally stand-up.
Okay.
No, I don't think it was asshole at all, because it's not his record to sell. So it's not like...
So you got signed by somebody who was working for him. So they're all like, they sit around in the meetings and they figure out how they're going to market it and what their approach is, where it fits on radio and all the things that label guys talk about. And they don't really know. Nobody's championing your record.
Yeah, and I think our A&R guy ended up getting fired in the middle of all that.
And that ruins everything. And they can, then they have Mariah Carey and Bruce Springsteen selling a zillion records, so they can afford to pay $500,000 for your record.
Yeah.
And tell you to figure out a way to go ahead and take your stuff and go.
Which was, and because to me, I especially after Evanescence, I never had this sense of like, this is where all my eggs are in this basket. I always had this impression of like, just let me know if you want to go out, let's go out. But if you don't want to go out, like, don't.
It
drag me along.
seems like it's such a reasonable thing to ask.
Yeah.
My manager, Jonathan, just recently was telling me a story because he said, yeah, this label came to me about this kid that I manage, but being on a label doesn't make any sense for him. And I was like, wait, why is that? And he explained it, and it made all the sense in the world. Where unlike the day that you're talking about with Donnie, we needed to be on a label or we didn't have a chance. Right? Well, now it's not that way at all. In fact, if you're on a label, you might not have a chance. And I just asked Jerry about a good friend of ours named Elle King. Elle King is really a great singer.
Super talented.
And she did a demo with me of Bruises and ended up singing it in Europe with us on this tour.
That's cool.
She's on a major label.
Yeah.
And no one's heard a thing from her.
Right.
Where these other kids... They're not bound to a label, and they're out there just making music, getting it out there. There's no rules. There's nobody to call. There's no control. And they're doing exactly to her what Donnie didn't do to you.
Right.
And that's
Just
what I always
stringing
liked
her
about
along,
Donnie. He was the toughest guy in the room.
Yeah.
He was very difficult to do business with if you were on a certain side of the ball.
Right.
And for me, he was always straight.
That's cool.
He was like, you don't have what this record needs. You better go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I needed that because I feel like what I have in common with you is we're reasonable people. Like
Jerry's mic isn't on, is it?
Check.
well, maybe I'm not reasonable to Jerry.
You're right. Yeah, give me this. Give me the real scoop.
Give me the truth.
Yeah.
I can. I know what to do with the truth. I can figure out how to work around that. But holding me in this place of nothingness is just ruining my life.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you have control over everything right now. And Donnie was never a guy to really, he was too busy to fuck around with just hurting somebody. And I always appreciated that about him.
I agree. I think that people have the impression that artists are always so sensitive and you always have to treat them with kid gloves. And I think maybe some artists are like that. But I would much rather you say, because again, I don't get in business with a record label so they can appreciate my art. I get in business with a record label so they can exploit my art to as many people as possible and make us a lot of money.
Right.
I don't need a record label to make art. I make it by myself.
Sure.
I need them to help me make money on it.
So you can continue to make art.
Yeah. And which I think is the blend of those two things seems really natural to me. But if you think of your record label as like helping you make your OK computer, no, you got to make your own record. Like, they're not going to help you do that. You have to be the one to make it. But then they're the ones to make money off of it. So if a guy says, hey, we can't make money off of this, thanks for shooting me straight.
Yeah, it's I think it comes down to parenting. And my parents would always just say, "Oh, Patrick, we're so disappointed in you," which was like, "Oh my God, I'm held captive in my own horror of terribleness. I'm a horrible person. I just wish my dad would have punched me in the face.
just one good punch.
Get over here,
and then it's done.
Done. Man, thanks, Dad, for punching me in the face.
Well, maybe if you had more soccer trophies, you would.
Yeah, that's the great thing. Walking into David's studio, there's like all these awards from different countries. There's Grammys, and then there's one foreign but much more beautiful trophy.
Truly beautiful.
And it's his 6-year-old's soccer.
Yeah, my
she's
daughter.
Six years old.
Yeah.
Her. So you want to tell everybody the story?
Well, yeah. So Abigail, my 6-year-old, did first organized sports this year and played on a soccer team. And at the end of the year, they all got soccer trophies. And when we were driving home, she asked, or my wife asked her, "Do you want to put this on your nightstand, or do you want to put this like in the kitchen somewhere?" And she goes, "No, I want to put it with Daddy's trophy."
Yeah.
So when she has friends over, she brings them down and she shows them her trophy. With Daddy's. She's like, "These are my daddy's trophies, but look at this guy."
Yeah, check this one. This is the real one you want to look at.
It's shinier than all the others.
It really is.
It is shinier. So let me get to these last questions, and then you can start. You're going to be writing with somebody today. Probably not nearly as fun as this.
No,
not nearly as talented as any of us.
I was kind of hoping you guys would just stick around and just quietly watch the writing.
Do you want us to get rid of your session?
Yes,
because I could use a lot of my lies that I. All right, so I always the first question is, honey, can I get that new ring? Wait, what? These are not the questions. Actually, the first is, what is the best find that you've found on tour? Something that I know that you haven't toured as extensively because of your life choices in your music, but of all the places you have traveled, is there like a little hideaway place that you love, a record store or great sushi, or is there something that you could turn people on to? Or even maybe because you don't live in Arkansas anymore, maybe there's something there that people don't know about that you could turn them on to.
That's true. Every time, it may not be a little gym anymore, but every time I go to Nashville, Emerson Hart lives out in Pasco, and it's probably 30, 40 minutes out of town, but we would have breakfast, and when we were first starting to hang out, I was like, "Why don't you come into town and we'll have breakfast?" And he was like, "You should come out here." I was like, "Well, why don't you come into town?" And he was like, "Come out here. We're going to go to a place called Loveless Cafe."
Loveless?
Loveless.
Loveless.
Yeah,
Oh,
Loveless.
I love that name.
And I went out there, and it's just mom and pop little cafe, and the best biscuits and jam and all of that, just Southern cooking thing. So every time I'm in Nashville, I'll drive out to Pasco and have some Loveless Cafe. Unfortunately, this Nashville TV show, the one on ABC, I think has shown it a couple of times in their show, and now it's starting to become like a bit of a tourist trap. But but the food's fantastic. Great breakfast, great omelet.
Tell him who Emerson is.
Oh, Emerson Hart is the lead singer of a band called Tonic.
I love that he's like, no, you come to me. I'm a singer. That's how that shit works.
Totally. And I was like, yes, sir. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Loveless Cafe.
what do you? So Loveless Cafe. Well, you're just making it worse for them by telling everybody nice work.
The design of your question does that already. That's not my fault.
It's a faulty design.
Yeah,
I didn't drive the car
Don't
off
hate
the
the
cliff.
player.
The
Don't hate the
car
player.
went off. All right. So, what are you a fan of currently? Is there a Netflix show or a new record or an artist or a food or a, whatever, something that you can tell people you're psyched about right now?
I'm completely obsessed with television. I feel like we are like in this golden age of television, and I just got done watching True Detective and House of Cards, both of which are just
House of
twisting
Cards
my
is
brain
like
around,
the
and they're
big
so
deal,
good.
man. Everybody loves
So
House
good.
of Cards.
There is as far as music is concerned, there's not that much music. This sounds terrible. I really don't listen to that much music because I'm doing it all day long.
You're doing it all day long.
But I heard this song about 6 months ago from a band called Miss Mister, a song called Hurricane.
It's called Miss Mister?
Miss Mister is the name of the band. And I'm just obsessed with this song, Hurricane. I could hear it over. And The Neighborhood. The Neighborhood is awesome. That whole record from The Neighborhood is really, really rad.
Cool.
This really, as a 35-year-old father of 4, that's just me trying to sound cool. Like, I listen to what the cool kids are into. I'm down.
I know what soccer trophies look like.
I've watched the Downtown Abbots. I know.
That's my wife likes Downton Abbey.
Yep.
So, do you have a choice in this? Do you choose to do this, or is it just kind of made up? Like this was decided for you. Like, why do you still do this?
I think it was predetermined that I was just going to be making music. The more that I do it, the more that I am interested in other avenues of it. I just started a publishing company with some guys, and I love the idea of developing writers. And for a long time, I was just a writer and wasn't a producer, and now I do more production stuff. So I think finding different little like inlets in the stream of music has been interesting for me along the way. But yeah, I don't think there was anything else out there for me to do.
I know some label guys that
Yeah.
that have started publishing companies.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is that they are terribly exploiting people further than they already are as label people. Yeah. What is the difference between what you're doing and what they're doing?
None. No difference. It's funny. It is funny how there's I mean, you pitched that one up to me. It's funny being on this side of the table as you're setting up a deal for someone and realizing like, oh, this is why this needs to exist, because my publishing company can't continue on unless we have these types of things in the deal. And then I realized other language in the deal where it's like, well, this was just designed to be a trap all along. Like a really good example, not to get into the minutiae of it too much, but the MDRC, every writer on a major label deal or a major publisher deal has this requirement of songs that have to be released on major albums. And that seems reasonable enough, but then you realize that during the course of a year, there was one year that I had a song on Daughtry's record, and I had a song on Carrie Underwood's record. And I think that was about it, and then maybe some indie projects. But I worked a lot that year, and those were 2 really, really big albums, and most people were shooting for those records and didn't get on them. But then I had a lot of friends who had 15 different cuts on these like random little smaller projects, and so they were able to get through their publishing deals, and I wasn't. And I thought,
right, I see.
But it was the whole design of that is like a trap. And major labels say that it's about recoupment, but it's not. And then so anyway, sitting on this side of the table, I realized like, there are better ways to treat writers where we still both can make money on it. But
And you're practicing that.
Yeah, and because I want to keep the writers that I work with incentivized towards the things that I'm incentivized towards.
Right.
Which is like, mix your life up of like developing projects and smaller major label things, and then shooting for the stars with the big stuff as well. And I don't know, but it's been fun to be on that side of the table.
Like I've always thought, like if I do that, if I did something like that, I don't want your money. Like I don't like you have a different function because I have many avenues of making money.
Right. Most of which are legal.
Most of them are illegal. I can't really talk about them. But
right.
but like I don't want a kid to give me their money. What I want is them to get to the point where if I did happen to take money, it would be because they had a shit ton of it.
Yeah.
And that is what I've learned from watching my manager do it.
Oh, yeah?
Like, he's taken things on. He's like, don't sign a contract with me. That sounds like the worst thing in the world. Like, if you don't want to be here, you should leave.
Right.
And I was like, what? That's just weird. Like,
yeah. I feel like this is a reverse.
No, here are my arms. Just put the handcuffs on. I'm just used to it by now. But
totally.
But it's such a right way to do it.
Yeah.
It's like being in any relationship and you're like, well, I'm just going to shackle your left ankle to the couch. And then you're like, well, now I just want to leave.
And because it's such a nebulous thing like art, that restricts their capacity to do the thing that would be making you money in the first place. If they were just doing TPS reports all day long, then it wouldn't matter. But
we are going to need your TPS reports, by the way.
I assume that would be, you're going to have to come in on Saturday. Yeah. But if you're making art and there's always this looming cloud over you of the record label or whatever else, then it affects your ability to write great songs. So if you give them the freedom, hey, go chase this thing down, and then if you're really successful, then I'll be successful too, and everyone wins. Yeah,
I love that, man. I think that's I'm glad that you're doing it because that takes space from people who may not have the best intentions for
don't know how to write songs either. Like that's another thing that's like
these guys never wrote a song in their lives. Yeah, and then they double dip. It's man. We'll talk. We'll do another session of podcasts, and we'll talk about the double dip.
That's going to be called the shitcast.
Jesus. Is there a standout? Is there a standout moment that led you here? And the way I would break it down is that sometimes a yes is the thing that gets you there, and sometimes it's a no. Like, is there a no or a yes moment that made all the difference in the world?
I think probably the Donnie Ienner no was a good one that led me in this direction.
Wow, that's cool.
And I really dig my job. I think I have some artist friends of mine who are like trying to transition into writing.
I know
for
a lot
people.
of them too.
and it's true. It's a different headspace.
But
I love it.
And it's an intention thing too. Like if your intention was to be an artist and you ended up being a songwriter, the avenue was correct and not disingenuous in any way.
Right.
A lot of these artists want to be writers because they go like, this is bullshit, dude. I know this dude who sits at home and he makes like $7 million a year. And it's like, then you're not that guy, dude.
Right.
You're a guy that should stay in the van.
Yeah.
and it's just try to get good.
Yeah, it's got its own stresses, but I dig it.
So what is next for you? What's the next thing? I know you have a session in 5 minutes that we're going to...
I spent a lot of this last year making a record with Emerson Hart, and that's coming out in a month, and I'm really stoked about that. Oh, great. Christina Perri and I worked together a lot on her last album, and it's
you're responsible for Christina Perri's like breakthrough.
Well, it's been people ask me a lot, like, what's my favorite song that I've ever written? And obviously, besides "To Be Loved," it's hard to just a second is a hard one.
Pretty good
find.
Call there.
Wow. No, it was smooth, wasn't it? It's fast. I would easily say my favorite song that I've ever written is 1,000 Years with Christina.
Oh, cool.
Primarily because it's paid my bills. And I think that that's a really noble thing. Like the fact that I can provide for my children with the thing that I love to do, that in and of itself would make it my favorite song. But then the added bonus of I love the person that I wrote it with, and I love her, who she is in the world, and the art that she makes. And there's a real sense of truth between, I think, the music that we make together. And then I just like the song itself. But it's been cool to see 1,000 Years in particular, like, do kind of its thing.
Right.
So anyway, yeah.
Well,
she's a good one.
That does sound like a noble thing, and I don't know her, but I hear really great things about her, and I think her music's great. So
yeah, she's a good one.
The last question is: how do people find out more about you? How can they either just go see, if you're going to be playing little shows somewhere, or if they want to have you play their birthday party. that kind of thing.
I'm more of a bar mitzvah kind of guy, but I could do birthday parties, I guess. I don't really know. I mean,
Do you do Instagram or Twitter?
I do Twitter, yeah. Hodges Music is my Twitter handle.
Hodges Music, HODGES music.
And I don't know. I had a website for. I think there's David Hodges Music is a website because my mother would be like, honey, I don't know when you have songs that come out on people's records. So I started a website for my mom. So it would just list off the discography of stuff that was coming out. I think it's still there. I don't know.
You could call her. This guy.
Well, I think that closes out the David Hodges podcast. Thanks so much for doing this,
Definitely, man. This is fun. I loved it.
I always love spending time with you. I'm so sorry about Jerry. That was David Hodges, my friend, co-writer, former member of Evanescence, and a very high-demand producer, writer, kind of awesome-looking guy with a pool in his backyard. You can find him at Hodges Music on Twitter, and he does, in fact, have a website, as he mentioned, davidhodgesmusic.com. And it appears to be pretty much up to date, although, as Jerry recommended, he should still probably call his mother more often. As always, feel free to hit us up at Patcast Podcast if you'd like to on Twitter or Instagram. Our other social media stuff is all on patcast.com. And you can join us every Monday for more conversations and more music, because it's awesome. We thought we'd leave you with one of the newest projects David worked on. As he mentioned in the interview, Emerson Hart, the lead singer of the band Tonic, just put out a brand new record. And David co-wrote with Emerson and produced the record. Here's the first single from the record, The Best That I Can Give. To take us out this week on the Patcast, take it away, Dave! And Emerson.
If you're reading this, then I'm long gone. Wish I'd had the strength to prove you wrong, but instead I broke your heart of glass. Some things I guess you can't get back. When we started, before the storm came, I gave you sometimes you needed always. Thought we were fine, but you saw it first. Now I can give you the life you deserve. So goodbye, love. Hang on to the long night. There's beauty in the sunrise, and you will find that goodbye is the hardest thing that I could do. After all the pain I put you through, it's the best that I can give, the best that I can give to you. It's so hard to see it come to this, when the truth is blinded by the wish. Instead of bending, I just watched you break, and now it's too late. Back when we started, before the storm came, I gave you sometimes you needed always. Thought we were fine, but you saw it first. Now I can give you the life you deserve. So goodbye, love. hang on to the wrong night. There's beauty in